This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
You invite a guest over for dinner to have a lovely evening and a lively discussion. You carefully plan out the menu, making sure that everybody's tastes and needs are met, going over the details to assure that everybody has a good time and that the night moves along smoothly. The moment arrives and it's showtime, but your guests are nowhere to be found. Concern creeps into your mind, hoping that everything's okay and that they're safe. Maybe there's a reason, maybe there's not, maybe there's a justification, or maybe there's not. But all the hard work that was put into this wonderful event goes to waste. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Falace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we talk about the suffering of cancellations.
We have a very special guest today.
Ourselves.
Oh, no, he's not here.
No, it's Casper, friendly ghost. He's sitting right over there. We've come across this a couple times, and tonight
It happens.
Tonight was one of those times. There's many different reasons why it happens, and I think that it would be interesting for us to sit down and talk about it.
The first one was because of snow.
No, back. You're going back.
I'm going way back.
But you got to go back further. The first one.
Oh, yeah.
The first one was a little bit different.
Yeah, the first one was, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. But let's get into our social media question. So it's just Mike and I in here in the studio, and we haven't done one of these in a couple weeks. It's actually the first you and I episode of the new year. So let's get into our social media question, and that comes from Crazy Chaka. Chaka's one of my favorite characters.
You know what? I'm going to put this one on you first.
You want to put it on me?
You always come to me first. I'm going to put it on you
I thought it's a gentlemanly thing to do. It says, what is the most valuable thing in your life? I thought about this one, and I thought about this one. And I have to say the most valuable thing in my life is time. All right? They're not making any more of it. It goes away every second of every day. What happened right now, it's gone, and you got to move forward. Without time, everybody's going to say, it's an easy answer. It's a layup for a lot of people. Oh, my kids, my wife, this is more, it's always people. But without time, you'll have time for, none of that matters.
You're always setting time for something. I got to be here at 4 o'clock. I got to be there at 4 o'clock. Time is always consistent, because Father Time never stops.
But people don't value it, and
Exactly.
that's what I think about it. So people don't value it. A little quick story is one year, when I was a brand new cop, we didn't make much money then, and I couldn't afford really expensive gifts for everybody. I'd just gotten together with my wife now, and I thought, but I'm really good with my hands, so I figured I would take my time. Yeah,
With yourself?
With myself.
Okay.
I would take my time and I would make something for everybody. I would take time out of my day, because time I had, money I didn't, and I would make something. I made everything from heart-shaped boxes to Christmas ornaments to all these little different things, and they were very personalized, and I really put my heart and soul into it. Unfortunately, people don't value time the same way I do. And actually, one of her family members said this to me, and I said, the most valuable thing you can give is time to somebody. And he says, well, I'd rather just give money because my time's more valuable. I'm like, well, that was a really shitty thing to say.
Terrible attitude.
It's an awful attitude. You appreciate things. So that gift that you got from your spouse or your significant other, that's expensive, and maybe you wanted it, and you're happy about it. Think about the gift of time that your kids gave you, where for your birthday they actually made you a card, and that's why I arrived at that. The most valuable thing to me is time. I cherish the time I got to spend with my grandfather. I cherish the time that I spend with my kids. I cherish the time that I spend with my wife. So without time, none of that exists.
Time you spend with me?
No, that's wasted time. Mike, what do you think?
I'm just going to talk about yours first. Time never stops. I say all the time, both of us have been very close to seeing the end. Yeah. So I tell people, make the most out of every day. Make the most out of every day. You don't know, everybody says, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know what tonight's going to bring. So make the most out of your time. But to me, the most important things in my life is my kids. There's nothing more to me, nothing means more to me than my son and my daughter.
Think about the time you invested in them. And listen, I'm not trying to be self-serving.
Exactly. And that's where this meshes. you know, the time I spent with my kids.
Going to their games.
Going to their games. Just the stupid little stuff.
Picking them up when they hurt their knee.
Making them both learn to ride bicycles.
How about making them lunch? You know?
Anything. You're sitting down and eating lunch with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always say, thank God I was in good shape back in the day because both my kids learned to ride a bike. And I ran behind them the whole time they started riding a bike. But yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, to me, the most valuable thing in my life is my two kids.
I agree with you 100%. My kids are the world to me. I'd die every day for my kids if I had to. I tried to go a step back further and like what facilitates my relationship with my kids. And they're both there's no right or wrong answer here. It's not that thing. I don't want anybody to think I really don't want anybody to think my kids aren't important to me because you know exactly how important they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, that's a tough question because it's singular to everybody. You know, somebody who just had a near-death experience, all right? Well, guess what's important to them? Their health. Or somebody who lost it. Yeah. Charlie Cifarelli. I talked to him, and the most valuable thing to him is walking because he's having difficulty walking. You know, the funny thing is it's only valuable until when you lose it. But we got to change that. Let's
take another one of ours. What do you think is the most valuable thing to Chantel right now?
So our good friend Chantel, her mother's having some health issues. And
Belladama Cigars.
Go to Belladama Cigars. Nice big shout out to her. And we pray for her all the time because her mother's having these difficulties and her mother's her best friend. She was in tears to me on the phone the other day. And, you know, at the time of this recording, who knows what's going to happen? At the time of the airing date of this, and I pray for her. Again, it's that just to have that one more moment. Think about the people you've lost in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just look that one more moment, just to sit with them on a bench and talk with them.
I said a couple weeks ago, I lost my mother on December 20th, 2011. Mm-hmm. Just that one more minute, that one more time to hear her.
Maybe that's that one question that you always wanted to ask her, but you never got a chance.
I'd love to hear her yell at me one more time.
Michael.
Just to hear her. Yeah, it's exactly it. Michael. Just to hear her yell at me one more time.
Pull your pants up, Michael.
Stop touching it.
So listen, Crazy Chaka, that's a tough one. Thank you so much for sending it in.
Well, I mean, it's loaded. We can go 1,000 different ways with that one.
Actually, the suffering of time. That's another future episode, which we talked about in our Frozen Instagram Live tonight.
Well, you know what? I mean, Father Time never stops, but you can't predict Mother Nature. If they called it Father Nature, you'd be able to predict it. I'm sorry, ladies. I was just kidding.
Before we go any further, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust them. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotaofhackensack.com. Let them find you a car. So, Mike, we're here in the studio.
With all our friends.
Well, you know, friends is, we'll throw that term around loosely, friends. But, you know, so we're here to talk about the suffering of cancellations. We've come across this several times. And, again, that was a nice social media question because it's all about time. It's all about time.
Absolutely.
The guest time is important, but guess what? Our time is important as well.
Preparation's important.
Right. So we work real hard to produce this show. I mean, think about all the work that we put in there, all the phone calls that we make, all the preparation, all the Andrew's time in producing this with A&J Media and
studio time.
Studio time.
Studio time's not free.
Correct.
You know, we rent the studio, and if we don't get a guest, we're kind of stuck with our thumb up our ass for.
I mean, let's walk through the production of one show, okay? And maybe that'll give people a little idea to when we get a cancellation for whatever reason. Sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes they're just careless. The preparation for the show.
So, you know, sometimes there's a holiday that comes up and they didn't realize they'd be down the shore for the holiday.
Well, that's another one. That's definitely another one. I just throw some statistics out to you. So I'm posting on social media at least 8 times a week, at least 8 times. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I don't do a whole lot with LinkedIn or Twitter, but it does. I do post to there. So all those posts have to be created. And then our shows that we already recorded have to be time-stamped. Then clips have to be pulled from them. Then they have to be worked into social media formats. So that's just on the technological stuff. Andrew, on the other hand, has to sit behind the board, switch cameras. You know, when you're talking, cameras on you. Doing that in post-production, which we've done on a couple shows, becomes very, very challenging. I mean, that's just a window into like a normal week. And then there's production of outlines, and then there's productions of openings, and then there's calling guests, and there's scheduling guests, and there's a lot that goes into this.
You know, like you said, even the scheduling, you know, we only record once a week. You know, who's available this day, who's available that day, you know, who can't do it at 7 o'clock at night, who can't do it at this time, who can't do it at that time. I mean, it really turns into a cluster.
I mean, we use that shared calendar app for guests, and it's nice because if you have somebody good,
we give them a shout out
if they want to sponsor it. No, it's TimeTree. We use TimeTree.
We use TimeTree all the time.
So on TimeTree, Mike has access to it. I have access to it. Andrew has access to it. So if you have somebody and a Wednesday's open, like for instance, if we're not doing a show, we'll put in there no show, but you know that this Wednesday's open, scheduled, done, and I automatically get a notification that says that was scheduled that day. So it's important to have that communication, to have that openness. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
And I say all the time, you run the show. I'm more the comedic value.
You're failing.
I'm more the comedic value to the show, but I know what you go through. And like I said, I think you're a little bit of a micromanager, but you bust your ass for the show.
Well, I told you why that
bust
happens.
your ass for the show.
And I'm not,
and the other thing is too, we miss a lot of family functions doing a show. Mm-hmm. You know, because we're locked into a studio. When we were in your basement, we could. We had flexibility. We can, you know, we could do. Yeah, listen.
But there's a change. There's a change in that. So having a studio, the average person's going to know that we pay for studio time, and we're not complaining, but because we love where we are and we love where we've gone and where we've been,
and we don't love the people that we're working with.
But if I'm telling a guest, hey, come down to my basement, they know it's my basement. When I'm not paying for studio time, there's no stake in the game for them. So for them to bail out, it's much easier than say, okay, you're coming into a studio, you have a production, we have production costs, all that stuff. So there's a little bit more, leverage is the wrong word, but there's a little bit more backing to us, I guess would be the right thing.
Yeah, it's legitimacy.
Mm-hmm. No, legitimate. Yeah. Okay, that's a good word. That's the word, legitimacy.
You want to write that down?
Yeah, I'm going to write that down right now.
Things we learned at the end of the show, legitimacy.
I'm going to go define that one, the De Palma. But yeah, it does give us a little bit more legitimacy as far as that goes. But getting, you know, even as much as getting up here, you got that. I got an easier commute than you. You got to travel on Route 3.
Route 3 and 46.
Which
a nightmare.
And we record at
absolute nightmare.
We show up at 6:30 to do our Instagram lives, and then we start recording between 7 and 7:30, depending on what time the guest gets here.
I mean, we have this drive to get here, but somebody has to walk like 3 blocks here. I mean, it's got to be a travesty for him.
And he asks for a ride home all the time.
I always do. It's the cardio for me.
So I don't want to hear you get no snow days from studio time.
I don't get any snow days. Okay, I don't get absolutely any snow days.
Mike, you got to hang on from recording. I got to go pick Andrew up and put him on my back and carry him over to snow.
Speaking of that, we have had people that canceled because of snow days.
Yeah, we had. So you know, let's get into some of the reasons before we get into individual things, because some of them have been for good reasons, some of them have not.
Tonight was
an unforeseen problem. It was a medical issue, but there's some reasons. Like there are certain people, you have an emergency in your family, and we're family guys, so we understand that. So we understand if you had a death in the family, something popped up. And I'm not talking about something popped up 2 days prior and you call me 15 minutes before. Like that's where it starts to get a little hairy.
Yeah, we've had people bail out on us 15 minutes before.
Yes, we have.
Actually, if you think about it, back in the day when we were in the basement, we did 2 episodes the one day.
Yeah, we were recording Kevin Dombrowski.
You got a text right in the middle of recording the first episode, and the second guest bailed on you. That
could you tell? Thank God we weren't on camera because my face just got red.
Just dropped.
And I remember turning to you and going, "He just fucking canceled." I was so mad.
And I don't want to say it was a big time star. Let's just say it was a well-known person.
We could say it was a reality star.
Yeah, it was a reality star.
It was a reality star, and he's a reality star in his own mind. And you know, I know I have mutual friends with him, and something like that, I don't ever think about. I don't ever think I'd want him back in. And that's my own personal feeling.
Well, I told you I saw him again another time, and I said, hey, I'm Mike from the Suffering Podcast. He said, oh, yeah, I had to bail the first time. He said, I'd love to come in and do the podcast again. Here's my number. Call me whenever you want to come in. We were going to open a date for him to come in. But we almost sold ourselves for that one. And we talked about that a lot.
We're like, I don't know if I want,
It doesn't really meet what we're all about.
No, because there wasn't much there.
But it would have gave us exposure, and we decided not to do it because we're not going to sell ourselves out.
And the guy was about as deep as a mud puddle, too. Listen, so he did what he did to us, and I'm sure he had his reasons. Hey, listen, if he would have told us a couple days before, hey, I'm going down to the shore with my family, I'd be like, cool, go take care of your family. That's all right.
Have at it.
I understand. But 15 minutes before?
And he didn't even call you.
No, my friend called me. My go-between called me.
Didn't even call you, text you, too.
And that's just inconsiderate of our time. Getting back to that time thing. Like, why is my time? And it took me a long time to learn this. Why is my time not valuable?
Yeah.
I have respect for everybody else's time. Why is my time not valuable?
Is his time more valuable than your time?
Apparently. Thankfully those days, again, it's going back, so he's going down to a basement and he's doing this stuff. And, we try to make our studio as professional looking as possible, but you're still in a basement. But, with somebody like him, I take great lengths to make sure people are coming in here. I make sure I give them a call a week ahead of time, making sure, because we're scheduling now almost 3 months out, and it's easy to forget. So I make sure I keep up. I throw out a text every here. Hey, listen, looking forward to your show, just to keep them in the loop and stuff like that. But now that we're in studio, we have to do things a little bit different. Because we pay for studio time, so that's why you and I are here now.
We can't adapt anymore.
No.
It's true. They do pay for studio time.
And he overcharges the shit out of us for it.
It's something just right there. It's right there.
You know what, though? Andrew's well worth it.
Listen, 3 blocks away, he drives his new Mercedes here, 3 blocks, just because of our studio time.
Because I deal with walking traffic, Mike.
Yeah.
So his license plate is Suffering 1 because we paid for it. Suffer this.
Suffer this.
But I take those great lengths to make sure after I schedule a guest to keep in contact with them, to make sure that they're up in what's going on. I send them links here and there, and so for the most part, out of 115 episodes, this is 115. We've done pretty well. I mean, what have we had? 8 or 9?
I don't even think that many, did we?
Well, Crudell, I'm going to bust Crudell's balls. You got out twice.
Twice he cut out on us.
Yeah, twice.
And I was still calling you, seeing if he wants to come back on, right?
Yeah, well, I'd say, Bobby, listen, you're welcome anytime, but the next time, I don't know.
We had Crudell twice. We had
the reality star.
The reality star. We had the cop, active cop, that didn't want to drive in the snow.
How ridiculous. Let's stop on that one. How ridiculous was that? So here's another reason why people cut out. So if you don't, it's kind of like buyer's remorse. So when you go out and make a big purchase and you bring it home and you're all excited about it and you get this home and all of a sudden you realize how much you just spent, you're like, fuck. But you bought it.
You bought it.
So it's a lot with guest remorse. They'll say, yeah, they're all into it. You have these great conversations with them. I can't wait for this. I can't wait. And as it gets closer and closer, the communication, and that's where the gut feeling
further and further away.
That's where the gut feeling comes in. The communication starts breaking down. And it's only happened once where this was not the norm. Communication breaks down and they start getting second thoughts. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this.
We've had this conversation, though. I'm not getting a good feeling about this guy. Haven't talked to him in a couple of days. This guy keeps calling me all the time. I know he's coming in. Reach out to this guy a couple of times and he hasn't reached back. I don't know what's going on for this weekend.
I've learned
it's happened quite a few times.
In this podcast, I've learned to trust my gut so much more.
Absolutely.
And usually, more often than not, when my gut doesn't feel something, it's usually true. So that one guy who's an active cop, it was snowing that day, and he just, I don't want to do it. Because it's snowing.
Do you call out sick from work because it's snowing?
I wish I could.
Fucking get your ass up here.
I can't.
No, you have no excuse. None.
You know, there's one time I saw the snow today, and I was going to call you guys and say, you know, I'm not sure about the.
That massive snowstorm.
Oh man, I had to walk. I was walking through it today. Those 3 blocks felt like 3 miles, Mike.
He's got those snow waffle shoes. You ever seen those that they wear in Alaska?
Well, you know, he's in a similar situation to us. This is considered a small business.
Yeah.
He's a small business owner, Andrew, and if
Small person too, but
if he doesn't show up,
Mike, you and I are about the same height, Mike. For all the listeners and viewers out there, please note, Mike and I are about the same height. The only difference is my hair.
Mike wears 3-inch heels, though.
only difference is I'll kick your ass.
When we try to line the guests up, we do in height order. All right, we haven't had one in here. Well, no, Cooney, Jerry Cooney. He was the only one that's taller than me.
Taller than you, yeah.
Yeah, because I try to schedule him that way. You know, but that guy, that was a very disrespectful thing, especially the way it was done.
I don't think we've ever contacted him again, right?
No, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I'm not interested. If you did it once, more than likely, and I'm not going to ostracize you, but if you did it once, more than likely you're going to do it again. Like Bobby's different. Bobby was in. Bobby did his show.
And Bobby's Bobby. He's a friend of the show.
Yeah, Bobby's Bobby. So, you know, he's in a different category.
He had reasons for bailing too.
I'm
but,
sure he did.
You know, I mean, he's very heavily involved in his kids' sports and everything. And, you know, he's got the 2 boys and the girl, and every one of them is heavily involved in sports. And he coaches all of them.
Speaking of heavy, Bobby's getting heavy. Did you hear that, Bobby? I just called you heavy.
I screwed up. Bobby's working. He's getting big. He's working out a lot.
He's working out a lot?
Bob, I got your back, pal.
Because you see him more than I do. But, you know, so what do you think some other reasons are where a guest would cancel? Obviously, like tonight, we were supposed to record someone tonight, and that's a given. Like, that's something that's you can't avoid.
Yeah.
You know, it's a medical issue, so.
I think some people are a little skeptical. You know, maybe they haven't watched the show yet. Maybe they haven't seen what we're all about. Like we talked about Benny Love before. When Benny came in here with Butchie, Benny was a little skeptical of us. You know, he didn't.
Do you think that was because of the show or because we were ex-cops?
Maybe a little both.
Yeah.
Maybe even the name of the show, Suffering. Yeah. You know, but a lot of people don't want to really talk to ex-cops. Like, listen, Benny was on the other side of that law at one point. Turned himself around. He's a great guy now. Do they have trust for cops? You know, so I think a lot of skepticism. You know, people don't want to maybe come in here and spill their guts to 2 guys they don't know. Gene Halberger.
Gene traveled a long way by car to get here.
Gene traveled a long way. And look at we've both seen Gene since then. Mm-hmm. The way he sat here that day and opened up to us. I know he was skeptical about coming in.
Well, suffering is a visceral word. But that's purposeful.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
purposeful. Oh, you're coming on the Suffering podcast. I don't want to suffer. Like, what are you going to do? Whip me with chains and shit? No.
Well, you know what? A guy like Gene, too, that's lifelong suffering.
Yeah.
You know, he went down to his depth, and he's still coming up. But he'll never be out of that whole suffering. He was pretty much still going through the suffering when he came on, and he's still going to go through it his whole life.
It's how he uses it.
Yeah, it's how he uses it. Exactly.
But that's how we try to display it to our guests. So, you know, when I talk to potential guests, here's how I discuss it. I'd say very simply, everybody suffers, but it's how you overcome adversity. And that's what our show is about. It's how to overcome adversity. It's a very easy sell to people because everybody likes to have that hero story where they overcame some sort of hardship.
The old "we're not born with silver spoons in our mouths."
Some people we had in here are. Some people.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, and like tonight's episode, the medical reasons, we totally understand emergencies. Somebody passes away in your family, you have a medical emergency, you're not feeling well, you get sick. Those are all, in my mind, and it's how I legitimize it in my mind. They're legitimate excuses. The ones that aren't legitimate, they are just people who disrespect our time.
Exactly. Self-centered. They don't care about, you know, maybe they weren't in it from the beginning. You know, maybe they didn't really care about it in the beginning, and last minute they decided, you know, screw it. I'm not going to go. I don't feel like talking.
No, it's...
But like you said, medical emergency, we could even say vehicle emergency.
That's
Car breaks down. Shit happens.
We had that one recently. I spoke to her a half an hour before the show. We did our Instagram Live. We did the openings. We did everything. And then ghost.
Yeah.
Just ghost. And to this day, ghost.
Yeah.
I haven't reached out to her either, but that to me that's an unforgivable one.
And it's disrespectful.
Yeah.
We had to totally regroup and put another show out that day. I mean, we have to put a show out every week. Mm-hmm. And we had nothing that day.
Because the show's much different now. If we didn't record a week, the studio's in my house. We can record it any time we want. Now we have to stay on schedule. Our audience has grown. They expect certain things from us. The expectations are higher.
So we're up to like 6.25 now or something like that.
Yeah, we're on the race to 10,000. We're on the race to 10,000. And
we're getting there.
But that's a draw for guests.
Absolutely.
That's a draw for guests. Okay, we're doing anywhere from 200,000 to 300,000 a month, and we have 6,200 subscribers. Well, it's a lot easier to do that and then say, oh yeah, we're just on audio. So when you schedule the guests,
we're just two jerks behind the mic. Yeah. Why don't you come in and talk to us?
Two jerks behind a mic to work their asses off to get where they are.
We're still getting,
Now there's three.
Now there's three jerk-offs behind a mic? I like this.
Two jerks behind the mic, one behind the window.
I like this microphone thing. Right behind. I like this. Only problem is like when Katia shows up, Katia is Andrew's wife, and when Katia shows up, we got to turn that mic off. Oh, she's going to beat the shit out of me for saying that.
But they'll start.
The camera was directly on you during that whole thing.
He's going to use that as leverage.
Yes, that's a clip pull.
That's not a live mic, right? That's a push button. You're gonna. If him and Katia are in there and it's a live mic, they're gonna hear. Shut up, Peter. What are you doing? What do we have for dinner tonight?
I actually got a text before the show from Katia say, "Take it easy on Andrew. Had a rough day." She preps me.
I did. It was an interesting day. It was all the snow. And
snow.
You should have canceled on us and made it a trifecta.
No. I walked through and I knew that. You know what? I was like, we have a show tonight, and the show must go on.
Well, we have a new obligation with the show, and it comes in form of Andrew. So this studio, if we record on Wednesday nights and we have that time booked with Andrew, we have to be respectful of his time.
Absolutely.
Because if we're
all goes back to what you said before about time.
If we don't record here, well, Andrew's not only losing money, a potential he could get somebody else in here and make his living, but so we have a new wrinkle as far as. But we've always been respectful of people's times.
Too. Like I said, we record at 7:00. It's Andrew's time away from his family.
Yeah. He's a family man, and he's got obligations and children and a wife.
I mean,
a very beautiful, loving.
You're such a kiss ass.
Holy Christ!
Oh my God!
My God!
Are you in the doghouse today?
Yeah, he must have fucked up. So, what'd you do today?
No. I just to make sure that my business partner, my spouse, and my wife at the same time knows.
Mm-hmm.
You should take. You know what you should do? You should take her over to 3 Acres, one of our sponsors. They got a spa in there. They have a restaurant in there. 3 Acres, the one in Jersey City. You've been there. Well, no, you haven't been there yet.
Claremont Avenue in Jersey City. Go to 3acres.com. That will give you everything that your wife wants. She can get, instead of her doing the esthetician work, she will have it done to her. Do you notice I said esthetician and not she gives facials? Listen, facial is a totally.
You can't say that with a straight face.
I can't.
I can't say it.
Because girls will say it all the time. Like, I'm going to get a facial. I'm like,
why don't you just stay home and you can get
what the fuck?
There are certain words that mean different things to men and women.
Oh, we could have a whole show. Like a girl will call her friend my girlfriend. Really?
Really?
All
you
right.
mean like a galentine?
A galentine?
No.
Galentine.
Well, is it like a girl's Valentine?
Yeah, this is like
strange.
I know it's a strange. We're talking about cancellations and things of that nature, but yeah, there's a new thing called a galentine where the girls just get together and they do stuff.
Oh my God!
I know a guy whose last name is Valentine. That's not like a boy Valentine.
Well, I don't go out with Mike and say, "Hey, I'm hanging out with my boyfriend."
Exactly.
That would be a Valentine.
How the fuck do we get off topic like that?
Hey, Drew, would you shut up for a minute? Give the guy Mike and he takes over the show.
So if we see these cancellations coming, and all the work that's wasted in between there, what do we do with it?
But it's funny too. You bring that up. I was actually at dinner with the person who bailed out on us tonight.
He didn't so much bail out.
He didn't bail out.
There's reasons.
There's reasons for it. But I was at dinner with him, and I text you, and you're like, "What are we gonna do?" So I'm at dinner with this guy. We're texting back and forth with different ideas and trying to come up with show prep. And I just text you. Actually, the first text was cancel or suffering or cancellations. But then I put of after it. Mm-hmm. And we just ran with that.
We ran with it. And actually, this show was produced on the fly. But that's what we do when we can't. So the wasted time, it's hard. It's a hard way to look at it. Yes, you can see all the work that's put into the production of an episode, but it's really not wasted time because we've become very adept at producing shows quickly, On the fly. Very, very adept. For everybody out there, if they think this show is totally off the cuff, you're fooling yourself. No show is totally off the cuff.
We do have a set plan of how we're going to go about it.
But if this is all we talk about, that's going to be a shitty show.
Yeah, it's going to be boring.
It's going to be a bad, bad show.
Well, like I said, I was on the SWAT team back in the day, and we had a lot. We had a couple rules. There's one: leave the plan in the van. Because you have this whole plan. When you come up in the van, you're going to go in, you're going to break in, you're going to go this way, you're going to go that way, you're going to go this. All of a sudden, shit hits the fan. Everybody's running all over the place. Mm-hmm. And the other thing was improvise, adapt, and overcome. You got to see what you're going up to. You improvise. You got to adapt to what's happening, and you got to overcome that situation. And that's really what this is all about.
You guys got to stop watching Heartbreak Ridge. Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Like I said, that's a SWAT thing. So.
But you have to learn things from your cancellations. That's what this is about. You take these bad beats in life and you learn from them.
But we've been going through cancellations our whole life. You think about it. When you're a kid, your parents are going to say, "Oh, we're going to go down the shore tomorrow, or we're going to go to Aunt Betty's house or something like that." All of a sudden, comes up and the plans are canceled.
What do you do?
What do you do now? Right? And so we've been going through it our whole lives.
I guess the life preparation for cancellations, it's okay. So we're not going down the shore this week. Everybody's off. Let's figure out what we're going to do.
Kids, we're going down the shore tomorrow. You wake up the next day and it's raining. Yeah. Now you're not going down the shore. Now you got to
figure out what to do.
You got to figure out what to do.
And you just got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because there's two ways you can go. You can pull back and say, we're done for today. Or you can keep moving forward, and that's kind of what we do.
You could sit on the couch like Al Bundy with a beer in your hand and a hand down your pants.
Sounds good to me.
Which is always good, but it's not productive.
No, but Al...
Not when you're paying for studio time.
Al is a modern-day sage. I learn a lot of stuff from Al Bundy.
Yeah, like I said, you got to make do with what you got.
How do we avoid this? Like, if you came up with an idea of how to avoid a guest cancellation, do you think there's any way to do it?
I don't think there's any way to do it. You listen. You could run your own life. You can't run someone else's life.
I try to put things in place, and I've said this many times. When my original co-host it canceled out on me, I got caught with my pants
for like the two episodes,
like three episodes. I got caught, but it was the day. Again, you talk about the major cancellation. It was the day before we were going to record, and I really wanted to do this, so I got caught with my pants down.
That was in episode 9, what?
No.
Episode 9?
Episode 9. Hashtag episode 9. But I got caught with my pants down, and I swore in that moment
happen again.
That would never happen again. So there's always something in the bank. There's always a way to adapt.
After he bailed out on you, did you have a show next week?
Yes, I did. I you know what I did? That was the when I went in and told my shooting story. Yeah. And I went in there by myself.
You had something to go off of.
I had I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting on a spin bike. I was doing my morning exercises. And I get the phone call as I'm on the spin bike, and my wife's downstairs. I'm like, this motherfucker just canceled. Because I had a feeling it was happening anyway, but I didn't think he would do it the day before we recorded. I'm like, this motherfucker just canceled. And we were bringing our wives in. We're going to be suffering a marriage. And I can still remember the opening to that episode. It was... there's the engagement ring, the wedding ring, and the suffering ring. That was my opening line.
And that's how you got the Suffering Podcast. This isn't the engagement ring podcast, not the wedding ring podcast.
This is the Suffering Podcast.
Because both of us went through all three phases of those.
So now I always prep for what if this happens? What if this happens? And I pray it doesn't happen. but I am always somewhat ready.
Listen, tonight, both of us were looking forward to tonight, and I had no clue whatsoever.
It was like a wah, wah, wah.
Didn't even have an inkling that it was even. The only thing I thought maybe it was going to snow today.
Right. Well,
So
I saw the weather. I'm like, fuck snow, but Mike's got a GPB, all right.
I was going to have to pick him up and bring him up here, but that's the only thing I thought about. And once I saw it really didn't snow, I'm like, we're good to go.
Should we give him an idea who was coming in tonight?
Absolutely, because he's going to come back one day.
Yeah, I know he'll come
He's
back.
definitely coming back.
So it was Mike's father, and it was somebody we had a brief glimpse of his shining light on camera at Grand Saloon.
At Grand Saloon.
And he stole that show.
He really did.
He really stole that show. He was so natural and so...
He just, like I said, he just comes off as natural. He comes out as real.
I was waiting for him to pick his nose because I know so many guys like him my whole life, and they're real. And, you're thinking about it, it was going to be called The Suffering of a Father, and your brother was going to be in there, and unfortunately it didn't work out, but that's an episode where it's not wasted time. It wasn't right tonight, so it's going to be for another time. But it was a medical emergency. Again, I hate to say this, but it's a forgivable offense.
It really is. I mean, it wasn't a medical emergency with my father.
No.
My father did have a cough, and every time he talked, he'd cough right after.
But the other person coming in was pivotal. Yeah. So it didn't work, but it will work in the future. Yeah,
so my father said that the other person canceled. So he said, and I got this cough. He said, why don't we reschedule? But I had gone to meet my father for dinner at 4:00. I get the text from the other person at 4:02. My father shows up about 4:05. So I found out at 4:02 the other guy couldn't make it. I find out 4:05 my father doesn't feel well and he doesn't want to do it. Now it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, but
at least I got to have dinner with my father today.
We've come across that before. I mean, we sat in the production room back there, and we've come up with an episode. Okay, what are we going to do? And that was when Andrew came in.
Andrew in, yeah.
Andrew came in here, and there was the other time where the woman from New York. Do you remember that one? It was like a half hour before the show, and there was some domestic issue.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Remember that one? Yeah. That one. And listen, I don't know. She said it was a domestic issue. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not calling anybody a liar. But hopefully one day we'll get her back in here because she does have a really, really good story.
But it's funny. What's one of the first names I brought up to you to call?
Oh, De Palma. De Palma. De Palma's like our go-to guy.
What are we going to talk about De Palma about? I don't know the weather.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So, but again, that's part of not getting caught with your pants down. You get somebody like Mike De Palma in here. He's going to produce.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
So,
Crudell's the same way too.
Yeah, they're going to produce.
We could have called Crudell today, but like I said, I
don't feel like talking about that type of stuff he likes to talk about. He goes off the rails.
Oh, listen, one of my best friends in the world.
So, there are some benefits to people canceling out.
Like I said, we get to sit here and talk to each other.
Yeah, there are some benefits. We've done these shows, and these shows between you and I have traditionally done pretty well.
We talk almost not as much as we used to. I mean, we used to talk 5-6 times a day.
Right.
Just to get to read each other's brains. Now we know each other's brains. We really don't have to talk all that much.
Get me out of your brain, man. Just get me out of there.
But it's good to sit down and talk to each other about stuff.
Because we got to unload. Yeah. Like, we have to download our thoughts without somebody sitting over here. Because we when a guest comes in here, we try to be ultra respectful to them, and we try to highlight them. We're not talking about the stuff, the minutia that we really get into with this show. But the benefit for me, now, you take the reality star, okay? Now I know. Now I know what to look for. I think he was our first cancellation.
He was the first bailout. Yeah.
He was the first bailout. So now I know. Now I know, okay, let's look for these signs, and these signs.
Again, he didn't call. We were talking about that. Didn't call, no contact leading up to the show. Mm-hmm. Then the day of the show, it was just...
And I was literally talking to him every day and a half, 2 days. I was talking to him a lot. I went to go see him.
And how'd those conversations go?
It's like talking to this table. It's like talking to this table. So what do you think? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You want to know what's funny? When you told me we were getting him in, I had just gotten my neck surgery, and I was in the hospital with pneumonia. You call me, you're like, hey, guess who we got? Tell me who it is. I'm like, dude, send me his number. I'd love to talk to the guy and, introduce myself and everything. So I call him up and I tell him, hey, this is Mike from Suffering Podcast. He's like, what's up? I'm like, oh, I hear you're coming on. Yeah. Oh, it's going to be real nice to meet you.
So easy a caveman could do it. But, that was an episode. Again, it's always being put in the right place at the right time. We both had conversations about this, like, I don't know, we're kind of whoring ourselves out here. And then when he canceled out, although I was pissed about the way it was canceled out, we both went,
yeah, it was a sigh of relief.
Yeah. And now we don't have to do this.
It didn't really meet our agenda. It wasn't, that would have been really just for us to get some promotion, and we don't need that anymore.
No, yeah, we're beyond that.
In the beginning, we could have used it.
We could have used it, but, we did what he possibly could have done for us on our own, which makes it a little bit more satisfying.
That's the suffering.
Yep.
If it was given to you, if we got the notoriety from that episode, did we really earn it? That would have been probably 100 episodes ago.
Oh, geez.
75 episodes ago.
Oh, it was probably 80 or 90 episodes ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's been some guests along the way where I thought they were going to cancel out. And I'll give one out right away. It was Mike Dowd.
Yeah.
Mike Dowd. I thought Mike Dowd was going to cancel out. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't get a good feeling about this. Sure enough, he showed up. He showed up.
John Elite.
John, remember how that happened? So John called us up. He told us he'd do the show. He goes, and he calls us up, hey, I'm in New York. You want to do the show? All right, let's do it. And I took off of work that day, and we did that show at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Kicked my wife out of her gym studio. I said, you're going. Oh, don't worry about it. This guy's, he's got some bodies under him, but he'll be all right.
There's a lot of people I thought would have canceled.
Yeah, and thankfully we haven't. We got a real good crew, and I think part of that's because we've gotten better at vetting people, not vetting their stories, but vetting them, their interests.
Feeling them out.
Yeah.
Feeling them out and getting a feel for what they're all about. And we don't vet stories.
No, but we vet people.
We vet people. You know, listen, as former cops, we could read people. You get a good feeling. We've said it before. I don't have a good feeling about this person.
Yeah.
I don't want to say turned down people, but we haven't had people on that we just didn't have a good feeling about.
Or they don't fit the mold.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of grabbing anything, we just got to make sure that they're right for it.
We're not going to pull someone on just for content.
No, I don't think we need to anymore.
Like I said, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit our mold. It's not. It's really not worth it. I'd rather, like you said, we talked today. I'd rather talk to you than talk to someone who doesn't. I'm not going to grab the local, vendor out on the street and say, "Hey, you want to come in and talk to us?"
And then there are some guests that I wish would cancel. There are some that I wish would have canceled. Now, you know what? I'm grateful for all our guests. I shouldn't say that, but there are more professional people sitting on the other side of the microphone, and it's not experience because I've seen people come in here and this is their first show that they've done, and they knock it out of the park. Your father, prime example.
Charlie Cifarelli.
Yeah, our first.
This was one of the first podcasts Charlie did. Yeah.
The first.
And when he came in the second time, we pulled up the pictures of him the first time and the second time. And he just became like a totally different person.
Sitting taller. He's a very well-dressed man.
And now he goes out and tells a story constantly.
And wait till he recovers from what he's doing now. And he's got a hell of a story to tell now.
No kidding.
He's got more to tell. We are coming to the end of this thing.
One thing I want to bring up in law enforcement, good cancellations. You're scheduled for a road job the next day, right? Mm-hmm. And it rains.
Oh, yeah.
You get 4 hours. Cancellation.
Oh, that's a good one.
We're canceling it. We're giving you 4 hours. You get to go home.
We've had a couple.
That's a great cancellation.
Well, we get to do shows like this, and I do love doing shows like this.
It's fun because I don't want to call it intimate because that's a Valentine. Thanks, Drew.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for burning that one into my head.
Yeah, no good.
It goes right up there with one of those new words like aquadump.
Aquadump. That will forever be in it. Thank you, Mike Turner. Thank you, Mike Turner.
And that's one. Listen, I know it's not cancellation, but that's one of the great things about this podcast. The people we have met.
Oh my gosh.
And it doesn't matter who you are, how high you are in the pecking order. Like you said, Mike Turner, who's on national TV, he's a reality star. We had Kim D, reality star. They're just like friends. I told you a couple weeks ago in a restaurant that I hang out in, Kim D came walking in with, because she knows people that are hanging out there. She walked right past everybody, came up and gave me a hug.
I just talked to her today. It's funny you bring her up. I just talked to her today. And I haven't talked to her in a while. But, she's got her fashion show. It's actually, by the time this airs, it's going to be over on February 8th. She does, her posh fashion shows. Listen, Mike, we're coming to the end of this thing here, and we've had numerous cancellations. What do you think it's taught you?
Like I said, man, improvise, adapt, and overcome. We got to get through it. When you're in law enforcement and something doesn't go your way, you have to make it go your way. You have to get to the end of it. You got to get to the end of your shift. We have content we have to put out. If something is in our way, in law enforcement, you can't quit. You quit, you die.
And if the same thing here, we don't put out a show, people are going to wonder what the hell, and they forget. They're real short memories.
Oh, without doubt, without doubt. They we don't come out with content in 1 week. They may find another
hook onto another show
and never see us again.
But our mission is also to not only just put out content. I know enough people to just throw out content. We try to put out good content.
Yeah,
we try
we're not putting out fluff stuff just to put it out. What do you think cancellation has taught you?
So I think it's made me a better podcaster. I think it's that if you went into a podcast studio and you knocked it out of the park every single time, it might lose its luster. It might not be as fun as it once was. And you certainly wouldn't be getting better in doing it.
Once you hit a top level, you kind of stay at the top level, maybe. When you're down, you keep trying to reach that top level. You know what I'm saying? So we try to put out better content every week.
In a lot of ways, when we first started, it was – I'm not saying it's not fun now because there's just a whole bunch of different adventures now. But when we first started out and we were hungry and we wanted this and we were moving, I do miss those times.
I wish we had video back then too.
Yeah, that was
to see
fun.
the difference. We used to just sit there like this.
Yeah, back.
Now you get more comfortable in your surroundings, and
you know what I miss about that? Wearing my glasses during the show.
You know what I miss? Mandy.
Yeah, figured.
That's one thing I miss about the basement is Mandy.
Yeah, you got to come by and see her. You got to see the boys too. But as much as I love our studio, I love what Andrew has provided for us. I love A&J Media. I love the new setup. I love all this stuff because it's a whole new realm. It's just totally different from where we started. But now we almost have to search for things to be hungry for. And I'll never go back to the way you can't go backwards.
Well, we're never going to settle.
No,
we're never going to settle. We're just going to keep moving forward and keep pushing forward. And thank God we have a good working relationship. I mean, we do argue like any married couple does.
Yeah.
We do have our differences at times, but I think what we have is working. And
keeps moving going.
And Andrew's just another piece of our puzzle now.
Right.
And we're just going to put more content out there and just try to get bigger and better guests. Not saying that our old guests aren't big and better, but I think it's going to be.
Well, now we're providing something extra with our Patreon. So our Patreon's given that stuff that we don't air. Stuff that's left on the cutting room floor. Andrew, actually, here's how I'm going to force you to do it. And this is what cancellations have done to me. It forces me to have you do this stuff. So one of the segments, and I want everybody to chime in on this one, of the segments that we're talking about doing on Patreon for our Patreons only is Mike's Army. Just a little segment with Mike talking to the guest, taking questions from the guest, and it's going to be on you. I want to see it. because I think it's going to be real good.
No, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I'm all about it. Listen, I'm all about moving this thing forward, and you know,
You're going to be able to see my Andrew recorded my read today, my pre-show read. One shot.
really.
Yeah, one shot. I actually said to the camera afterwards, I said, yep, sorry you didn't get to see me mess up on that one.
Andrew, we're talking about blooper reels, right? You'll still have all his bloopers from his pre-show reads.
No, he wiped the disc.
I mean, technically speaking, if I was to get technical, I do have all the intros. Technically, not the reads. I have all the starts of all the episodes.
Yeah, but some of the stuff you can't air.
I would never air anything without being reviewed, but there are a lot of funny outtakes.
I want you to get Mike as he's walking in here in his wig and his dress. Have people see how you really are.
Or the time when I had the Trump wig and I was peeling the curtains and you're doing the intro.
So listen, that's going to wrap it
That
up.
was so much fun. But listen, the hashtag Mike's Army reads, whatever you want to do, I'm all about it.
I think it's a nice
no
little,
problem with it.
because we really want to provide some extra content, stuff that we wouldn't put out on YouTube, stuff that we may not be able to put out
Listen,
on
we
YouTube.
we could do deep stuff too. I mean, people only know me as the idiot that sits there and interjects the jokes and everything else. You know, I mean, I'm a deep person. I'm a real person. You know, I go through suffering every day. So if people want to ask me questions, they want to send in questions on, you know, I'm all about it.
So before we leave, don't forget, every week you can always listen before you watch. All of our audio episodes come out on Sunday on every major podcast platform. And Mike, you got any closing words for everybody on Cancellations? Try to keep it topical.
Like I said, listen, you got to roll with the punches. You know, life isn't going to be easy for you. Life throws your curve. What's it? Life throws your curveball.
So we'll end it here.
We'll end it on that one.
We'll end it on this one. So I used to do those little keep suffering
Blurbs.
messages. And I said,
And that one got a lot of views.
that one got a lot of views. It says, what do you do when life throws you curveballs? You learn to hit the fucking curveball. That's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast. And as always, let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Make the most out of time. Legitimacy goes a long way. Trust your gut. But most importantly, improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to follow us on all social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. You can follow Mike at Mike_Falaise. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. Of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. And we're going to see you on the next episode of the Suffering Podcast.